There
That's
we go.
Mary Beth, our vice president. So thank her for everything she does. I'm going to make one announcement before I turn the screen over to Mr. Bugs, to Mary Beth and Mr. Bugs. The announcement is on behalf of Sam Kieschnick. You all know none of us can ignore anything by Sam Kieschnick. So there will be a second annual fall socially distant bio blitz in our Dallas-Fort Worth area, September 5th through 11th. I'm going to put a link in. I've put the link in once. I'm going to put the link in again. You can see it's an iNaturalist link. That doesn't mean you have to join. It means this is a way, you don't have to enter some data. This is a way to read more about the bio blitz. Again, September 5th through 11th. We'll have an article about it in our newsletter. And there's 6 Master Naturalist chapters in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We'll be competing. He calls it a bit of a competition. And one important thing to realize is that if you make observations outside of Tarrant and Parker counties, they will count for another chapter. So make sure you stay in Tarrant and Parker counties that week of the 5th through 11th. He's asking us especially to make observation in Fort Worth parks, because the city of Fort Worth is leading a Parks for Pollinator initiative. You folks in Springtown and Arlington, please go ahead and make your observations in your hometown. You folks, I know there's a couple people here that are actually in Johnson County. Well, please just come a little bit north and take some, make some entries in Tarrant County. According to Sam, the time you spend making entries, taking photos and uploading them will count for volunteer hours. So I would encourage you, I think Brent's rule of thumb is try to make, 15 observations for an hour, and that would count as an hour out there somewhere. So please do that. And so again, that's the fall socially distant bio blitz in Dallas-Fort Worth. Last year, there were 3,500 observations from 1,242 participants. CTMN was a close second to Elm Fork. So let's go with that and try and make first this time. So Mary Beth, I'll turn it over to you, and I'll make some other announcements right after.
Okay, we are very pleased that David Bugs has given his time to talk to us tonight on such a worthwhile and enriching topic. David is the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. And Texas Parks and Wildlife Department is one of our 2 sponsors for the Master Naturalist Group, along with Texas AgriLife. His role is developing and managing the execution of Texas Parks and Wildlife's diversity and inclusion strategy. He is also the former Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for FedEx Office, Inc. He also worked for Sabre Holdings, which is a locally based firm. He is an accomplished cultural compliance and management professional with years of experience in the area of relationship building, leadership development, mentoring, training, and executive coaching. David also provides insight on behavior management, cultural understanding, multi-generational management, and ethical and government compliance. He has a Master's of Business Administration from Baylor and a Bachelor's in Marketing from Southern University in Baton Rouge. I heard David speak in April for the Texas Master Naturalist Be the Change presentation. and it was excellent. I recommend that you look at his resources there in that presentation. And David, I know you have spoken to several master naturalist groups, and we are so lucky and fortunate to have you. Welcome.
Well, it's good to be here again, and I'm very excited to share with you all. You all are in my old stomping grounds. I used to live in Arlington for a number of years, so I miss that area. Don't miss the traffic. Area, a lot of friends there, and a lot of really good food. Austin is an interesting area, but I really enjoyed the Fort Worth, Arlington area. Really had a great time while I was there. So excited to talk with you all. I feel a little nostalgic as I talk with you all, thinking about the places where you all are and wishing I was around that certain area myself. But at least I wax on too long, which I've been known to do. Let me get started. And I want you all to tell me if you can see my screen. Can you?
Yes.
All right, super. So I want to make sure I'm talking about the right group. This is the Cross Timbers chapter of Texas Master Naturalists. Am I right?
Correct.
All right, that's the first test. So everybody gets an A. So what I want to do tonight is just kind of examine something that you all have in your mission and charter. It's through the Texas Master Naturalist Volunteer Program. You can help children and adults in what your community learn about Texas natural resources. If you skip down a little further, it says, in return, you will provide your community with volunteers, services in the form of educational activities, projects, or demonstrations. So one of the things I gleaned from reading that is you all are very focused on making sure that communities are engaged in the type of activities that you are doing, and that communities are understanding the value of what you do. Am I right? So let me ask a question. I might be asking too many questions at one time. So I want somebody to just tell me this. Why is it important for every community to learn about natural resources in Texas? Anybody, put it out there. You can put it in a chat or you can call it out. And Mary Beth, I need you to help me with this.
Sure. Because they're precious and need to be conserved.
Okay, they're precious, need to be conserved. Anybody else?
I have a grandchild and I want those resources to be there for her.
Super, that is very important. I'm approaching that place.
With the urban expansion, we see a lot more people coming to Texas, so we need to educate people on how to treat our resources.
Absolutely.
We don't lose them.
Here's several. We want our great-grandchildren to love it as well. We are all in this together. Equity, so all citizens know it is available. Minimize habitat fragmentation. They are for everyone, so that everyone engages in conservation. To create more interest in natural resources, which will lead to more protections.
I love it. This group is on top of it. Man, if I didn't know any better, I swear you guys really appreciate conservation and natural resources. Wow. All right, so we agree that it's very important for every community to be engaged in natural resource conservation, right? That sounds like what you're saying. So what might be the future effect to Texas if only a small number of communities care about natural resources?
Well, for one thing, there's a lot of governmental decisions made about what to do about our natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have everybody appreciating it. Our politicians are not going to know that we care.
Man, that Frank is outstanding. You all need to make the co-chair.
Evan
That's
said we will
really
lose
good.
them.
Go ahead.
Oh, Evan said we will lose the natural resources.
Absolutely. And actually, we're already starting to lose some.
They may be urbanized.
Yes.
We wouldn't have enough push by large groups of naturalists, so we would lose, like this, but just to reiterate, they would lose a lot of our natural resources, and we can probably hold on to just a fragment of what was there, but it wouldn't be enough to sustain anything.
Absolutely. 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 Anyone else?
We only have a small percentage of our land available to the public, and we could lose that small amount because
Right.
the earth belongs to everyone and we need to do our part. Some people just don't know about the environment. You can't do what you don't know about.
Absolutely. All of that's great. Give me one more passionate person.
So I feel like other like cultures and groups can bring like knowledge that we don't necessarily know about plants, like ethnobotanical knowledge. You don't always know, like Native Americans, all different cultures use plants for all different things. So it's really interesting to learn the history of plants. And we won't know that without like diversity.
I love it. I love it. Actually, I can stop right now and everybody can go home and we can get busy and make it right. Am I right? Okay.
No.
We'll keep going. We'll keep going. All right. So how would the natural resources of Texas benefit if each community had Texas Master Naturalist volunteers?
How would they benefit?
How would they benefit?
How would they benefit?
I have one, I know one answer that matters to every taxpayer. And that is that if we had the volunteers that are working saves our tax dollars and allows the specialists at Parks and Wildlife and the other professionals to concentrate on other important activities.
That is excellent.
It would engage younger generations as well as other people and inspire them to take a stand. Because we're like, in most cases, we're the first, like in more cases than one, like when people go to our volunteer opportunities and, you know, see what we're doing, that's for kids, that can be like the very first push into the natural world. And if it takes one thing to inspire just a group, and if they take that, they can run with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you all have it. You got it. You understand the value of making sure that every community is engaged in what you all are doing. It's vital to all of us, not just to us right now, but also to our future. Someone said to our grandkids and great grandkids and on and on and on. And we're going to get into this a little bit, as our environment changes, as our social structure change, as the city limits grow, it becomes even more important to make sure that everybody understands the value of our natural resources. Because if we don't have those people that are appreciated, they're not going to take the time to put money behind it. They're not going to support it. And we all lose. We all lose. So we've got to make sure that we're including every community when we start talking about the value of what we're doing and bringing them into the fold so they can go back out and do the same thing that we're doing in the communities we live in. Did everybody agree?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I love it. I love it. So let's get into just a little bit of, I got to do a little bit of data. I wouldn't be a part of Texas Parks and Wildlife if I didn't do a little bit of data. So I'm going to give you a little bit of data. So this is a picture, and this was taken in Texas with folks from all over Texas. So one of the things we know that Texas is not changing. It has changed. Our demographic has changed. where we live has changed. All of the things that we used to know about Texas when we were younger have changed. And change is not necessarily bad, but how we manage change and how we manage those relationships as we go through change makes a difference in what the outcomes are. So one of the things we know about Texas, and this is some 2019 demographics, we know that Texas is what they call, it's an oxymoron, majority minority. Just 20 years ago, it was majority white and also majority male. That's what it is now. It's majority minority, and it's also majority female. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we've got to make sure that we're engaging everybody. We've got to make sure that everybody's on board with the things that are valuable to us in the state of Texas. Also, we're getting younger. Believe it or not, there are a lot of folks that are moving to Texas and they're younger and they're bringing in their families. So our age is changing as well. A few years ago, the median age in the state of Texas was, I think it was like 38. Now it's 34. So we're getting younger. And when you just look at the DFW Metroplex area, it kind of tracks along with the rest of Texas. It's getting younger, it's majority minority, and we've got to be mindful of that when we start looking at who we're trying to attract into master naturalists. Because it's going to be important, just like we talked about earlier, it's important for us to make sure that every community is focused on what we're trying to do. We've got to make sure that we're inclusive of all those different communities. It's going to make a difference to the things that are important to us, to the sustainability of the things that we think we know are important. When we start talking about the median age, again, we talked about that. It's 35 and a half, or 35.2. But now let's look at our current membership. And this is information that came from Mary Pearl. We're a little bit older. Actually, the age range right now, and this is 2018 data she gave me, she didn't have the latest, is between 49 and 77. Now, one of the things I will say in the last couple of years, because as I meet with different master naturalist groups, we're starting to bring in a few younger folks, but it's just a handful. And we've got to make sure. Now, that doesn't mean we want to get rid of folks that are mature like myself. We want to add to. We're not talking about replacing anybody, because I'm not going away anytime soon. But we want to add to. We want to add to the ideas. We want to add to that energy. We want to add to the broad level of folks that we're engaging. Also, when we look at the demographics or the racial and ethnic backgrounds of our program, you know, it kind of is what it is. So we've got to shift our focus again to make sure that everybody, we don't want to leave anybody out, that everybody feels like this is a place where they can come, they can learn, and they can go back and engage their communities. Everybody still tracking with me? I haven't lost anybody yet, have I? All right, great. I'm feeling pretty good. I had to take a breath there. Also, the gender composition, we're still majority female, and that's nothing wrong with that, but we need to make sure that we're engaging, again, that broader group. We want to make sure that everybody feels that what we're doing is important to them, both now and in the future. So I want you to think about that as we go forward. So here's my question. Does a master naturalist in North Texas resemble all of the communities in North Texas? I'll give you a minute to think about it.
No.
All right, I guess I didn't need to give you a whole minute. All right, so here's the premise. Natural resource conservation is key to the enrichment of all people in all of the communities. Master naturalists have done a great job over the years educating folks, doing outreach, doing natural resource management, and all of that across North Texas. We've got huge environmental issues. Things have changed. Recreational habits have changed. Consumptive habits have changed. And it's made it more important than ever that we engage broader swath of the community. That's why diversity and inclusion has become increasingly more important to sustainability of all the things that we cherish. So as our population changes, becomes more ethnic, becomes more female, becomes more age diverse, we've got to meet that challenge. And the way we meet that challenge, we're going to talk about a little later on, but we've got to make sure that what we do is important to every community across Texas. Now, a little bit of history, I'm going to go through this real quick. One of the things that I recognize is that we all started from an agrarian background, regardless of who you are. We all started from an agrarian background. Actually, in Texas, and I did a little research, in 1918, only 15% of the Texas population was urban. 85% was rural. So we were out doing those things and protecting natural resources, working with the land, appreciating the land. Now, in 2020, 86% of our population is urban. So less than 15% of our population is rural. Total shift. And if you've got all those folks in these urban areas, and you got all these rural areas that's vacant, somebody got to develop an appreciation for it. And here's the thing that I've recognized in Texas also. You know, we have 95% that's privately owned, but a lot of it, a huge amount of it, and I'm learning this with what we do at Parks and Wildlife, is absentee ownership. Nobody's really caring for the land. So we've got to develop more of an appreciation across the board. Otherwise, we're going to start losing some of the things that we say we care about. Now, there are a lot of folks that do engage the land, but they're engaging the land for what they can get out of it. It's not an appreciation for it. So we've got to make sure that we're doing those things to develop that appreciation for the land. You all don't hear any noise in the background, do you? Okay, good, good. All right. Another thing that's changed in Texas also is our Asian population has increased dramatically. Actually, as a segment, it is one of the fastest growing populations in Texas. The third most spoken language in Texas behind English and Spanish is the Vietnamese, Cantonese. I don't understand all of the language, but it's an Asian language. So just think about that. So how do we engage that population as well? And there's a real strong appreciation for the outdoors and for conservation and for the land within that population. So how do we engage that population? I participated in something that the Texas Parks and Wildlife did in a survey that was done across the nation. And it talked about the appreciation for the outdoors across ethnicities. They interviewed parents, they interviewed people that were young folks and all of that. And one of the things we found out is everybody, again, had a strong appreciation for nature and the outdoors. Nobody was saying, no, this is something we don't want to deal with. And everybody thought that and really felt that there was a benefit from nature, regardless of who they were. Everybody felt that there was a benefit from engaging in nature. So there's an intrinsic appreciation for nature in all of us. As a matter of fact, if you go to different major cities across our nation, you're going to find some landscaping areas, even in some rundown areas, there's like a little cityscape or a garden or something like that. And I've had been blessed enough to travel a lot of urban areas across the US, and there is still that engagement with nature, regardless of the community. Did I go backwards? Which way did I go? Okay. But one of the things that the Nature of America study found out is Americans face a significant gap between their interest in nature and their efforts, abilities, and opportunities to pursue those interests. And experiences in nature are also deeply social. And access to nature, and this is something that you all know quite well, especially in Texas, is tough. There's not enough places where people can go and engage in nature. And what we call nature may be different from what folks in those different communities call nature, because we call nature what's out there. But actually, nature is wherever you are. As soon as you step outside your door, that's nature. And what we're going to have to do in shifting with some of us, now some of us have gotten it, is shift the understanding of where nature is. And when we go into different communities, talk about what's right around folks and how to manage some of those things that are right around them. And that's going to be important for our future. So one of the things I always talk about, a lot of folks talk about our hunting heritage, and that's how we connect with nature, but that's not everybody's heritage. But there is an engagement out there, whether it's farming, whether it's cultivation, all those kind of things, there's still that intrinsic appreciation and connection to the outdoors. So, and this is a slide I like to share. It says, people diversity is a social resource we cannot afford to ignore, especially when it comes to managing what we've been blessed to nurture and what we've been given dominion over, and when it comes to nature. So again, some of the things that you all talked about earlier, we started talking about changing. The demographics of the US has changed. There's, and Frank said this earlier, there's a mistrust of government. There's climate change, and believe it or not, it is real. There's an urbanization of our society, lack of protection for the outdoor spaces. There's also something called a nature deficit disorder. Has anybody ever heard of that? Nature deficit disorder, where folks are not engaging the outdoors as much as they used to. Although the pandemic has started forcing folks outdoors. But one of the things that we're doing, we're taking, collecting data around folks that have been outdoors, and as things start opening up, how much is that starting to change? Are folks starting to revert back to staying indoors a little bit more, or doing those social things in urban areas without going out to those natural areas? So we're watching all of that kind of stuff. And there's an expanded conservation challenge that we're facing all over the US, all over the world. And it's an everybody issue. So another thing, and I'll just tell you about us, Texas Parks and Wildlife, we've got a lot of folks that are retiring. We call it a silver tsunami. We've got more folks retiring than we can bring in. And these are folks that are our scientists. These are folks that have been working for us. And we have one of those organizations, those state organizations, where folks come and they stay a lifetime. They stay their full careers, but now they're starting to retire, and they're retiring in droves. But we aren't finding the folks that are majoring in natural resource conservation at the same level that they used to. So that's another challenge. So one of the things that we're trying to do is encourage a broader spectrum of folks to go out and major in some of those natural sciences. So we've got folks to replace these folks with as they retire. All right, so here's another question. And you all have actually, you know what, I'm gonna skip this because you all have actually answered this question. We talked about the challenges to natural resources that come with all the different changes. You all have I told you this is a smart group. I can really stop right now and we just talk about what's next. But I'll go forward. Okay, so we know that something needs to change. We've been talking about, you know, we need to engage different folks. You know, so what's the problem? Well, a lot of times we think about, yeah, well, the issue is why we haven't done anything, David, is usually it's a budget issue. And now my computer has stopped moving forward. Isn't that something? We have to do it the old-fashioned way. So we say it's a budget issue or a committee capacity issue. maybe we don't know enough about those different groups, so we don't know how to reach out to those groups. Well, actually, a lot of times it's just us. We get stuck because we get caught up in what we expect. We get caught up in our dispositions, the way we see things, how we think things ought to be. And sometimes it's just fear. Am I right? So we're going to talk about dealing with some of those things. But here's something I thought was really important. And this was written by a lady by the name of Ruth Benedict. Ruth Benedict was a philosopher, and she was engaged in a lot of different activities years ago. If you want to do a study in a woman that was really ahead of her time, look up Ruth Benedict. But she said this back in the 30s. She says, the crucial differences which distinguish human societies and human beings are not biological, they are cultural. And she's so right. So we've got to start dealing with the culture that we created, that we're comfortable with, and start figuring out how we bring other folks in, but allow them to still exercise their culture, not come in and we assimilate them to what we're already doing, but how they come in and can bring, and somebody said this earlier, there's a lot of learning we can do, some cross-pollination, if you would, with other cultures, because there are things that folks will bring to what we're trying to do that will add value to what we're trying to do. And that's the whole thing around diversity and inclusion. It's not about taking it away. It's not about discrimination. It's not about politics or anything like that. It is about adding value. And if you don't get anything else that I talk about tonight, get this. Bringing in those differences are about adding value. It adds value to the things that we're trying to engage folks around. It adds value to the landscape. It adds value to sustainability measures. It adds value to education. It's adding value. Adding value. It's a value add. But we've got to be careful about allowing culture that maybe we didn't create, but we just fell into, to put up a roadblock to us bringing folks in that would add value. So the starting point is making sure that we're culturally aware. We're self-aware. And that's hard sometimes, because becoming self-aware says that I have to start looking at other folks not being the problem, but maybe I might be part of the problem. I'm pausing for effect. You notice that? That was kind of cool. Pause for effect. But I have to look at myself. So one of the things we have to do is understand what is called cultural agility. Cultural agility, being able to flex, not giving up who you are, or being able to flex when you're dealing with folks that are not exactly like you, because they're not necessarily wrong or bad, they're just different. And again, differences do what? They should add value. Differences should add value. So when we start talking about cultural agility, we're talking about being respectful of other folks' points of views, noticing and adapting to different cultures, being open, examining your own perspectives, allowing those different perspectives to add value to what you're trying to do, recognizing what that value is, and being willing to experience somebody else through their particular lens. All of those things are about being cultural agility. See, I can't have tongue agility, but we can have cultural agility. All right, so I got a quiz for you. All right, everybody ready? I knew you came prepared tonight for a quiz, right? So everybody ready for this quiz? So I've got 6 questions. And I want you to score yourself from 1 to 3. All right, you got it? 6 questions, score yourself from 1 to 3. 1 means I'm kind of struggling there. 3 means I've got it and I'm on top of it. Everybody got it? 1 to 3. 1 means I'm struggling. 3 means I'm on top of it. All right, you ready for the first question? I want you to write down your score now. Here we go. First question. Well, I'm saying question, the statement. When I work on a project, I prefer to work with people from different cultures. These are things, these are statements. Score yourself, 1 to 3. Give yourself a second. All right, next one. If conflict arises with others outside of my culture, I'm open to different views. Be honest now. Be honest. Score yourself, 1 to 3. Next question. Well, observation. When it comes to knowing how to cope with cultural diversity, others would say I am very knowledgeable. I saw some smiles on that one. All right, how we doing so far? All right, next one. In my spare time, I choose to learn about other cultures. Everybody got a 3 on that one, right?
No 3s yet.
All right, here's the next one. When conversing with someone from another culture, I deal successfully with ambiguity and differences. 1 to 3. All right, here's one everybody's gonna get a 3 on, right? In my daily life, I change the way I interact depending on and that's supposed to be culture, put a little picture there. Culture and background of those in the group. In my daily life, I change the way I interact depending on the culture and background of those in the group. All right, so I want you to add that up real quick. Some of you all are way ahead of me. You've already added it up. So a perfect score is 18. 18. All right, so how many 18s we have out there? Raise your hand. No 18s? How about a 17? 16. Ah, we got a 16, man. All right, now, Barry Beth, you're not grading yourself on the curve, are you? You know, I had to watch you. You kind of, okay. All right. All right, what did I say about 14s? 13. What about a 12? Gotta have some 12s. Ought to be a ton of 12s.
We have another 15. We have a
You got another
16.
15?
Yeah, we
Oh,
have a
cool.
13. We've got so many numbers here. They're flying by. 14, 12, 11, 15.
All right, so
10.
let me ask you a question. Anybody lower than 12, don't raise your hand, just think about it. If you lower than 12, just kind of, you know, not that 12 is great, but just kind of think about, you know, we've got a little work to do, but it's okay. You're here to learn. That's what we're all here for, to learn. Okay, so don't put yourself out. Don't beat yourself up. It's okay, because, you know, even I struggle in some places, and I've been doing this 30 years. So it's a learning process, and it's about developing and growing and putting yourself out there. And here's a phrase that I use all the time, and I think somebody stole my phrase years ago, and when I found out who did it, they're gonna have to pay me. It's about learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable until being uncomfortable becomes comfortable. There's a whole lot. That was pretty good, though. I blew myself away with that. Learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable until being uncomfortable becomes comfortable. That's when you know you're ready and you're really making a change. Anything that's worth doing, there's some discomfort that comes along with it. If you're going to renovate a house, there's going to be some discomfort. There's going to be some tearing down of stuff. There's going to be some ripping out of stuff, but the end product is worth it. It's always worth it. So that's where we are right now. And that's what learning to be a little more cultural agile is all about. So how do we get started? All right, we've got to evolve. And this is Bill Russell. I'm not going to go into a whole lot about Bill Russell, but I will say he's the only person that's been a part of the NBA that has 11 rings. Everybody gets excited over 5 and 6. He has 11 rings. But the reason he has 11 rings is because he changed the game. He changed the game, and people were willing to follow him because they saw what he was doing added value. So we've got to evolve. So what else? Become comfortable being uncomfortable. Be honest with yourself. We all have some biases. We all struggle with different things, including me. But one of the starting places is recognizing that you have some of those struggles. Then you can address them. We also need to be curious. You've got to find out a little bit more about other folks. And then here's the other side. You got to let other folks find out about you. You got to share who you are. You got to be open to new ideas. Be careful about your assumptions. You've got to be, and this is very important. I'm going to talk about this again later on. You got to be intentional. It's not just going to happen. I had a conversation with a group not long ago, and the guy said, well, Mr. Bugs, all of this is good, but why don't we just let it happen organically? Okay, so we've been doing this for how many years? How organic is this thing? You know, what's happened? Yeah. You got to be intentional. You got to learn how to be a champion for change. And it starts slow for some of us. Some of us are out of the gate day one, but for some of us, it's slower. And you know what? That's okay. It really is. You got to come along at your own pace because we also want you to be authentic. You got to be authentic in what you're doing. All right. Boy, that's amazing how I knew that was coming up next. Be authentic. So again, got to be intentional. This is a quote from one of my favorite authors. He says, his name is James Baldwin. He says, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. This is the guy that you see there in the hat. He has an organization down in San Antonio. We have something called an Urban Outreach Advisory Committee. But we've engaged folks that have outdoor organizations across the state of Texas. And this gentleman, I will forget his name as soon as I bring up his picture. But he has an organization called Black Outside. And what he does, he engages African-American youth in the outdoors. He takes them camping, he does nature studies, he engages with schools and takes the youth outdoors. And it's not just African-American youth, but it's mostly African-American youth because that's the group for the most part that has either been neglected or for some reason felt that they were shut out. So he's intentional about engaging the youth in the outdoors and turning them into people that have a strong appreciation and passion for the outdoors, for nature, for natural resources. And these are the types of groups that we need to engage as well so that we can add value to what we're trying to do.
That's Alex Bailey.
Yeah, there you go, Alex Bailey. Boy, my mind, it just went in here and it went out that way. That's what happens as you get younger. Pause for effect, yeah. So we've got to make sure that we listen and that we include other folks. And I'm not going to go into this, but first of all, that's Balmorhea, who we were talking about earlier. If you've never been there, you need to go. It's worth the trip. It's a long trip, but it's worth the trip. But this is a good friend of mine who used to be the deputy director of the National Park Service. His name is Mickey Fern. He says we can't use our values to understand and motivate people whose cultures, lifestyles, and choices have emerged from different cultures and value systems. We must understand how they experience us and what relevancy we have in their world. So we got to get outside of ourselves. Somebody wants to say something, share something?
I just said amen.
Amen. I like Bill. Bill is my main man. All right, so one of the things that we do when we do anything engaging, we use either adaptive processes or we use technical solutions. And technical solutions are when we come up with a way to do something that's by the book and all of that kind of stuff. But when you're talking about engaging human beings, other human beings, in the things that we appreciate and engaging in natural resources, you've got to use an adaptive process. And we've got to use an adaptive process. And when we start talking about adaptive change, we first got to get on what we call the balcony and look at the big picture of what we're trying to do. We don't just jump in and start doing a whole lot of activities. Got to step back, look at the big picture. But that doesn't mean that you just continue to look. Eventually, you've got to engage in the activity. And you got to confront some of the facts. You've got to deal with some of the distresses that are going on inside of your agency. Because not everybody's going to be on board. There's going to be some folks that are going to struggle with this idea of bringing in folks that are not like the folks that we've always brought in. So you got to deal with some of those things. You got to be disciplined about the way you go after it and give the work back to certain people within the organization. And I'm talking to you now, Mary Beth, and everybody else that's in leadership. You can't do all the work. Everybody has to play a role, some type of role in doing this work. And if there's somebody that's struggling, even if they don't want to do the work, you got to make sure you protect that voice because everybody's not going to be on the same page. And you know what? That's okay. That's what diversity is about and inclusion is about. Everybody having perspectives, but being able to share their perspective. But at the end of the day, the thing that's going to be most important is what's important to the mission of your organization. And hopefully everybody's on the same page there. What's important to the mission of your organization? So here's some questions that I always throw out to groups. And these are questions that you've got to ask yourself. And this is something I really want you to take to heart. First question is, why is this important to our mission? Why is diversity and inclusion important to our mission as master naturalists? How really inclusive are we today? What progress are we making? Because you're making some progress, but you got to examine what progress are we really making, which means you got to track the progress that you're making. What have we done that's giving us the best results? Next question is, what should we stop doing? Are there some activities or processes or things that we're doing or neglecting to do that we need to stop engaging, stop putting a whole lot of time and effort behind? Because it's not netting us what we want. We're not engaging that broader community and helping drive what we are so passionate about. The next thing is, how is this going to support our relationships internally and externally? Whatever that activity is, how's it going to support our relationships internally and externally? Next question is, what help do we really need? Because sometimes we start out on a journey and we don't recognize there's some other things that we may need along the way. And we don't realize it until we start going down the road. Take a step back. What help do we need? Do we need somebody to help us with the plan? Do we need somebody to help us with engaging those broader communities? What help do we really need? And then the other part is, what does success look like for Texas Master Naturalists cross timbers? What does that look like? What does success look like? Something to think about. So I'm going to hurry to a close. So here's some things don't do. Don't overthink it. Because when you start overthinking, you get fearful and you won't do anything. You get what they call it the paralysis of analysis. So don't overthink it. Also don't assume that other people don't know what you know. I think Alicia said it earlier, there's some learning that we can glean from everybody. And think about, there are other ways to do what you do. There are a lot of organizations out there that are doing similar things. How do we partner with those organizations? Another thing is be authentic. Be authentic. Make sure that you're doing it out of your passion, from your heart. It's not just an activity that we think we got to do so we can check the box. Be authentic. All right, so getting it done. Carolyn Finney said something. I don't know if you all are familiar with Carolyn Finney. She wrote a book years ago called Black Faces and White Spaces. But she talked about this. She says that there has to be reciprocity in those relationships that we're trying to create. Nobody has a universal story on how we do conservation. Everybody has a different story, and everybody's story is important. We've got to make sure that we examine those different biases. And when I talk about biases, it's not a negative thing. It's just the way we see things. But is that the only way to see it? Does that make sense? It's not a negative thing. It's just the way we see it, because that's what we've been exposed to. But is that the only way to see it? So we've got to examine some of those things about ourselves. And here's the bottom line on this. And I love this statement that she said. She says, you got to make a determination. Do you want to be comfortable or do you want to be better? All right, so one of the things we've got to do, we've got to effectively communicate what you're trying to do. In the absence of a clear plan and effective communication, what happens? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You'll have 5 more people like David Bugs that'll come and talk to you, and you'll go, boy, that was something. And nothing ever changes. So here's some things to improve your chapter, and I've shared this with some of the other chapters. Make sure diversity and inclusion is a priority in your programming. Be transparent and hold other folks accountable. Create an inclusive environment. Diversify your support groups, volunteers, leaderships, which means going out, engaging some of those groups that are already in place and just doing things with them. Not going there and telling them how to do it, but doing things with them. Creating a message for inclusion, using images that are inclusive, being intentional, and don't over scrutinize yourself. Not other people, although you don't want to do that either, but don't over scrutinize yourself. It's not that deep. What you're trying to do is create relationships that add value. It's real simple. It's about creating relationships that add value to what you're trying to do. Expanding your message through those relationships. Here are a few organizations that I work with in the state of Texas. If you would like, they all have websites. You can reach out to them, let them know who you are, what you're trying to do, and they have chapters all over the state of Texas. Just let them know what you're trying to do and let them know, hey, look, I like to come out and engage in some of the activities you all are doing, just so I can learn more about your organization. It's real simple. And I guarantee you, none of them will bite you. Well, Black Wolf Hunt Club, no, I'm just kidding. None of them will bite you. Just reach out to them, make that initial contact, and just go and view. Don't go and tell, just go and view and listen. Last slide, I think Stephen Covey says, strength lies in differences, not in similarities. And that's extremely true. And the older I get, the more I find out that that is more true every day. And the other thing we've got to work on once we start bringing more folks in that are different is making sure that they feel welcome. Retention is just important as going out and recruiting and bringing folks in. All right, that's it. That's all I got. Any questions?
You had a link to a site where you could take a quiz.
Which one?
Uh,
Oh, is it this one?
Implicit, yes.
Yeah.
What does that do?
Well, it helps you determine the different types of biases you might have, because sometimes you just don't know.
Yeah,
It has a range. It's not necessarily a race or a gender. It could be political. It could be, there are some folks, there's a woman that took the Project Implicit test, and she did the one around size. And she found out she had a bias against people that were overweight. And it blew her mind, because she said, after I took the test, initially I said it can't be true. And she said, when I started thinking about it and thinking about the people I relate to and hang around, there it was.
thank you.
You know, there's some folks that have bias against people with certain hair color. It's fascinating. It really is. So when I say everybody has something, everybody has something.
Mhm.
True.
But you can't address it until you know you have it. It's like, and this is a bad analogy, but you understand what I'm saying. It's like recognizing that you're an alcoholic.
Mhm.
Until you acknowledge that you have an issue, it's hard to address. But if you go to that site, and it's called Project, if you just go in and type in Project Implicit, but make sure you go to the Harvard one,
Mhm.
because there's another group that's trying to copy that. The Harvard one is totally free. So you want to go to that one. You've got to do a little registration, because they want to track who's going out and taking these different tests, and then choose which type of test you want to take. It could be anything. And it spans the range of different things that folks could struggle with. Some folks have issues with people that are young. Some people have issues with people that are more mature. I didn't say old, I said more mature, because I'm in that more mature group. And it affects how you make decisions. It really does. It's fascinating.
David, I have a question about the comment about how to go about. You talked about we have to protect those voices, those folks that are maybe, I guess I would say personally, that might not be as far along as I personally am.
Mhm.
And so my question is, how do you go about that? You know, is it empathy? Is it, you know, is it starting with, well, what about this? Don't, you know, is it asking for them to explain more, or is it being empathetic first? How do I learn how to go about that?
It's first of all being respectful that their opinion or their thought may be different from yours. Because, you know, the climate we're in now, and it drives me bananas. As soon as somebody finds out somebody doesn't see something the way that they see it or think the way they think, they get totally disrespectful. And what that does is shut down communications. And communication and learning is the key to folks expanding their way of seeing things. So first of all, acknowledge, hey, look, I understand you see this differently. And you know what? I respect that. I appreciate it. You mind if we talk a little further about why you see it? Well, not necessarily why you see it that way, but what is it about what I'm sharing with you that you're struggling with? Don't ask why, because why can be defensive as well.
Mm-hmm.
Ask the what and the how, and help me understand is another question. Help me understand a little bit more about how you see things, that sort of thing. Because you don't want to take anybody's voice away.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs to be appreciated for their particular perspective. And when you show appreciation for their perspective, then they're more willing to listen to yours.
Mm-hmm.
But if you show disdain for theirs, why should they listen to yours? Does that make sense?
Yes.
starts off with being respectful, being open to listen to theirs, and then asking them if it's okay if you share your perspective. But don't just share your perspective, tell them why it's going to help them as well, how it's going to add value to the mission of what you're trying to do. It's not just about you, and it's not just about them. It's about how we all move forward together, how it, again, it's going to add value to what we're trying to do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But that's a good question. That's a really good question.
Have you seen any small baby steps forward from your work at Parks and Wildlife?
Oh, I have. Our organization, now we're still struggling with some of the representation, but I recognize representation isn't everything. It's whether or not we're engaging that broader public. And we're starting to do a much better job of actually being intentional. My wildlife group actually started something called an urban listening tour. Where they're actually going to urban neighborhoods and asking folks, just polling folks on, how do you engage in the outdoors? What are some of the things that you do that make you feel comfortable in the outdoors? Are there some things that we can do as Texas Parks and Wildlife to help you with your journey engaging in the outdoors? And then you listen. So that's been great. Some of the groups that we've been engaging with on a regular basis, it's been outstanding. We actually started to engage. We have something called a non-traditional university partnership, because most of y'all know forever, the only schools we've been recruiting from are Texas A&M, Texas Tech sometimes, UT for particular things, and then Stephen F. Austin. And that was basically it for Texas. But now we've expanded that because we recognize there are other folks that have things to add. So we've done what we call a non-traditional university partnership, and we started engaging some of these other universities that have natural science majors, including, and I don't know if you all are familiar with Houston-Tillotson University. Actually, Houston-Tillotson is one of the oldest universities in the state of Texas. It's predominantly African-American and some Hispanic. We actually helped them develop a wildlife program. And they're actually helping us, the students are actually helping us do urban coyote studies.
Excellent.
And that's something, that was unheard of, even engaging the university that didn't already have a program in place. We didn't have time for that. So we're doing some different things, and it's adding value. We're starting to bring in interns that are different from the traditional interns that we would normally bring in. Actually, our leadership has changed since I've been there, and I won't take all the credit for it. I give Carter a lot of credit for it. But when I started at Texas Parks and Wildlife, out of the 13 directors, there were 2 females, and one of them was a deputy, and the other one was the over the legal department. And 1 Hispanic male, and that was it. All the rest were white males. Well, now we've got 6 females that are directors. We've got 3 African Americans and 1 Hispanic. And everybody is there, not because they fit a particular profile quota. They're there because they add value. They are there because they were exceptional in what they did. But what we had to do was expand our vision, because our vision was narrow, and get outside of our comfort zone. And we found some outstanding folks that were, a lot of them were right there, but we didn't see them before.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all blowing it out of the water. Another thing that we've done, each division at Texas Parks and Wildlife has diversity and inclusion goals and actions that everybody's responsible for. So it's not just a David thing or a Carter Smith thing or Clayton Wolf thing. It's everybody's thing. Everybody's owning it, but they have to tie it back to, and this is something that I'm pushing, you got to tie it back to how it's going to add value to our mission And in your goals and actions, you gotta tell me what the measures are, what your measures are, and it needs to be something that's gonna add value to your agency. It can't be just a nice thing to do, because nice thing to do is not sustainable.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so how do we go out and meet one of these other groups?
So each one of them, and I'll go back to that page maybe.
I made a screen copy of that already.
Okay.
Mhm.
Each one of them has a website. So you go to their website and they'll tell you where the different chapters are. Just go to the link for that chapter, and there's usually somebody that's a contact person. Just get in touch with that contact person. And they'll let you know. And actually another thing that you can do, and this is something we did in with our hunter education folks, we actually went out to the site and saw where there was an event and just came to the event. I mean, let folks know that we were coming, but we just went to the event. And it was great. Some of our wildlife folks are starting to do more of that as well. And again, there's some reciprocity there, because there's some things that our folks are learning, because we come from a scripted understanding of how to engage in nature that was taught by our schools. And you getting folks that are from all over the US that are a part of these different organizations that are doing things maybe a little different. So there's some learning there.
I was curious about if you have found other chapters doing, maybe having a work group or a small group of individuals focused on it, or how do you, so I sense that there are a lot of people on the call who are interested in wanting to take next steps, but I was wondering if you know if that's a recommendation. And there was an advisory council, I think you mentioned, but I don't know how that worked, and if that was part of TPWD or a master naturalist group or what.
But that is part of TPWD, but there are master naturalist groups that have started doing this work. Actually, a really good group, and a group that I spoke with probably 3 years ago, is the Austin group. They started a committee 3 years ago. I went and spoke to them and actually helped them kind of get things rolling. And they're doing their thing. The North Texas group, which I know Bill is a part of that North Texas group. Aren't you all doing something like that?
No, we're not North Texas. Remember, we're across timbers.
Yeah, but there was Bill Collins.
Oh, well, he's hiding here somewhere.
I'm here.
Yeah, he's high.
Yeah, I'm here.
Bill, weren't you all working on something?
Main thing guess we have done is we've acknowledged that we need to go there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we have and I guess we had we had a diversity and inclusion person, but then she became president. So
I'm going to pipe up here, and this is Sharon, and say that one place you can begin to learn more about this is at our own state website. And I just put the link in txmn.org, and it's called Be the Change.
Yes,
There have been several different programs, and most of them are recorded. I know I saw some chat earlier with some folks talking about people with disabilities. You would probably be interested in watching the TMN Tuesday from March. It was called Birdability. And that is started by a young woman who wants to make sure that folks with different disabilities can have more options about going, birding. And that was a great program. And there's lots of material on that. I hate to just say go to a web page, but that's a good place to start. They are working, they being Mary Pearl and Michelle, in all their non-existent free time, are working on what they call a playbook for chapters. And I just haven't had time to go to that playbook. And some of you guys who are interested in this, would be grateful for you to do some digging in this material, and come up with some ideas and some strategies that this chapter could begin working on. And some of it, some of it is going to be slow and some of it is hard, but I had an administrator a few years ago say, well, let's start with the low hanging fruit. And I realized that he had a good point. There are some things that aren't too hard to start with. So that information is out there. And I know I have a link to the playbook somewhere, but I couldn't find it now if my life depended on it.
And I tell you what about that, and Sharon, thank you so much for bringing that up, because as I get younger, as I throw that out there, we've been talking about this playbook since the spring. And one of the things that Mary Beth and actually we met this morning that we've been talking about is gleaming things from those different events that you all are sponsoring and adding that to the playbook as we go. Once we get to the fall meeting, we should have a pretty good list of activities that folks can, to your point, can engage in that are low-hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
A few things that are out there right now that you can just kind of get going with. There's a guy that's going to speak in the fall in October that is, I call him a friend, even though he may not acknowledge me. His name is Drew Langham, Dr. Drew Langham, and he's a professor at Clemson University, but he does birding tours across Texas, and he is outstanding. And one of the things that Drew does a really good job of is getting folks fired up around engaging other audiences. So if you can participate in that, you will get a treat, I promise you. But again, as far as the playbook is concerned and the other activities, there are some things, and I'm glad you brought that up, that are out on the site, on the main site. But I encourage you to do this. Just start having conversations with folks. And what you'll find out is they'll tell you what you need to start doing. Just asking those questions. Learning how to ask good questions reaps huge benefits. It really does. Mm-hmm. And folks will tell you how to engage with it.
Well, that's a good segue. If you don't mind me moving on to some other things, David. We are absolutely grateful for your time and your expertise and your willingness to share with Parks and Wildlife and with Master Naturalists. For me, it's about, again, I've been a teacher. It's about those kids in the future. I want nature and natural resources to be there for them. And this ought to be easy for Master Naturalists. We understand diversity. We understand that a diverse habitat is more sustainable and more stable and more beautiful than a monoculture habitat. So some of this, we already understand this. We may not know we understand it yet, but thank you very much.
Anytime. And if you all need anything, any help with anything, just let me know. I'll share with you what I have, and I don't mind. My passion is to make all of conservation and all natural resource important to everybody and get everybody moving in the same direction as much as possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank
David.
you. Thank you.
Thank you for the time. I'm going to escape because my is home, and I need to see if she still looks like she did when she left this morning.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Y'all take care, and thank you for
Bye-bye.
inviting me again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right.
We have several announcements and a couple of people, I'm going to give them a few seconds and just fill the space so they can get ready. That's you, Gina, to make some announcements. I hope you all can stay for a few more minutes. We'll try not to take too much of your time. And we will get back to this topic, and I look forward to some of you who would be interested in working on a committee. Some of the other chapters have a DEI committee that has projects or presentations or articles for the newsletter or whatever. So please let me know. Okay, Gina, what important information do you have for us?
Okay, I just wanted to share with you all just a brief update about what happened over the summer with regard to the Clean Water Act. So I'm going to first put a fact sheet in the chat so you can take a look at this.
Okay.
This kind of gives you an idea. The Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of the Army announced their plans to begin the process of revising some 2020 legislation, which adversely impacted the Clean Water Act. So you can see in that fact sheet kind of a description. If you jump to page 4, you'll see what that revision is kind of getting at. I think it's important just to note that many environmental protection groups have been very concerned about that 2020 legislation because it did remove protections from, the estimates are a pretty good substantial portion of the nation's wetlands and streams. And so in late July, the EPA announced that they'd be doing a series of listening sessions that would be held for public input. And the first one is later this week. And so, oh, it looks like the listening, Sharon put those.
That's all right. It doesn't hurt to put it in twice.
So if you click on that link, you'll see that there are several listening sessions. If anybody has input and wants to share, because you know, water quality is one of your passions. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that that was an opportunity to do some advocacy that could make a difference. Because of so many of the, you know, I'm not trying to be political, I'm trying to be safe, but I think it's important to know that we have an opportunity, and the administration and the EPA is wanting to address some of the issues that have maybe some setbacks. And this is an opportunity for us to give voice to that as well. So just wanted to share.
Thank you, Gina. And the Department of the Army that Gina was talking about is near and dear to some of us. That's the Corps of Engineers, and they are looking for information, and that's why we thought it was okay to go ahead and present this during a meeting. Some of the definitions have changed. And so they are looking for more information on how these new definitions will impact our waters. Bill, did you have a comment?
Just you talk about the Corps of Engineers, you talk about my lifeblood. So that's the people I hang with, are those regulatory folks that enforce the Clean Water Act.
Sharon, can I send an email to everyone with that?
Why don't you send it
to you,
to me, and we'll get it out to the members.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I don't know if the Facebook page is a good avenue or if the email is better.
that would be great. And I'm pretty sure if you're already in the Facebook group, you can post that there.
Okay, I'll post it there, and then I'll send you as an email too.
Right.
Thank you, Glenda, for asking.
Sharon,
Yes.
I want to make a comment.
Sure,
You start talking about advocacy, we got to be careful.
right.
Do that in the name of Master Naturalist. You can do it in your own name.
Right.
I'm sorry, I didn't preface that. I meant to say that because that is important, because we're a nonprofit. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Frank, for mentioning that. We can participate as individuals. We cannot represent ourselves as representing the master naturalists. So yes, thank you. Okay, I have another important piece of information to give everyone. Let's see if I can find that and share a screen here. And that is that our chapter's virtual nature venture, our fundraising event for the state annual meeting, it is live, and you are more than welcome to go in and register. I registered this afternoon just before the meeting. I will, and this is from our website, our Cross Timbers website, but let's see. Well, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to put it in chat, but I'm trying to do too many things at one time. You don't have to be a member of Master Naturalists to participate. It is again, the focus is to support our state organization, in particular the annual meeting. And you can run, you can boat, you can swim, you can sit out in nature and be a part of this group. There's a Facebook page, I believe, that you get a little swag here. The photo from the koozie, was that Michelle's photo, Mary Beth, or whose photo might that be?
That is Kate's photo.
Kate Morgan took this
Yes.
photo, and that's going to be on your own koozie there. So that's race roster, and let's see. Can Sharon do this?
Oh, I put the link in the chat.
You put the link in the chat. Good.
And also, if
'Cause
you go
I'm-
to the main website, it's underneath members only. There's a drop down.
Oh, okay.
And the
So
state is going to
this
send
is
this
under
out.
members only. I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, the state will send out an email to everybody.
Okay. And we had a guinea pig test the website, and the response was that it was crazy easy to register. So yes, we are asking for funds, right, to participate. Okay, now I have to look at my list and see what's next on my list.
Why is it under members only if non-members can participate?
No reason, it's just there temporarily.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute because I can't find the right folder, the right file. There it is. Okay, some other things that are going on. Training starts tomorrow. We will have our first training session in person tomorrow at the Botanic Gardens. We were able to get the lecture hall so that those folks could spread out and socially distance. For you folks that are in training, we hope you can get there by 5:30 to pick up a sandwich, and we cannot eat or drink in the lecture hall. So we will have a few chairs and some space, and hopefully we'll all spread out a little bit to have a sandwich. You will be so fortunate to meet board members tomorrow. So don't forget board meeting tomorrow. We'll also get the sandwiches and the drinks. We are strongly encouraging that you wear a mask and that you social distance. We also encourage you to bring your reusable water bottle or drink bottle. We're gonna try and cut down on the number of water bottles So please bring your own. If you don't bring your own, we'll have some of those red Solo cups available, but we'll be serving iced tea and water. The remaining training sessions right now are scheduled to be on Zoom for the classroom and of course the in-person field trips. If you would like an invitation to the Zoom meetings, and those of you who need to make up field trips, please contact, if you'll contact training@ctmn.org. Several of us catch those messages, and so we'll be able to put you on the list either to make up a field trip if you need to do that, and we need to get those folks in first, or to attend any of the Zoom meetings. Is there anything else about training I need to say?
Can I get a list of the members to make the class@ctmn.org?
Sure thing. I was creating my own group, and for some reason right now I have 25, and I think there's more than 25, but we can at least get it started, Frank. I can send you my spreadsheet. Carol, if you're here, you might be able to send the list to Frank.
I also have a list, so maybe we need to all compare our lists, but I do have a list. I think I have 29.
Okay, would you send it to Frank, please?
Yes, I'll do that tonight.
Right.
I'll send it to the whole board.
Okay, thank you. And again, if you need to or attend a field trip to complete your training, or if you would like to attend some of the other Zoom meetings, send that by email to training@ctmn.org. A couple of other things are coming up, and this segues from David's talk. I received an email a couple of months ago from a woman at the North Division of Fort Worth Police. She's involved with community engagement, and they are having a community fair on Saturday, September 23rd. And she invited master naturalists to have a table and to have, we can talk about our group. We can have an activity for the kids. This lady's name was Rosalinda, and I can't remember her last name, but I just thought her first name was so beautiful that I remembered it. So if you might be able to participate on Saturday, September 23rd, I don't think it's a full day. It's part of the day, but I don't remember now which part. That's in North Fort Worth, almost to Keller. So maybe some of you who live up in that area might be able to join me for that event. On October 9th. Yes.
Sharon, did you say what date was that and what group again?
It's September 23rd. And it's the North Division of the Fort Worth Police Department, their community engagement.
Okay, I'm going to follow up with you about that. It is a Thursday, though, it looks like. That's all I was.
The 23rd is a Thursday?
Am I looking at that right? Yes, I believe so.
Well, I'll double check, because you know me, it could actually be the 25th, and I wrote down the 23rd. So I will double check on that.
I'll follow up with you on that.
Thank you. October 9th, which I hope is a Saturday, there's a lot going on October 9th. There is the training field trip, but also River Legacy is having their fall event. So we will need someone to represent the master naturalists in Arlington River Legacy. So that's October 9th. I know that's a Saturday. And this year that's only a one-day event. It's possible NIPSOT will be there as well as other groups. So we'll have that coming up. Another thing that's coming up, and some of you have already heard from me, the city of Fort Worth is going to apply to become one of the bird cities of Texas. And Dallas got in ahead of us. This is a Parks and Wildlife program. And so you may be hearing more about that in the next couple of months. Lights Out Texas is coming up again, starting, it may even have started yesterday, for lights out at nights to help the migrating birds. What else? What have I missed, folks? There's some other things I have no doubt there's other things that I should be announcing.
We had a question about the BioBlitz from one
Yes.
of our new class members.
Yes. Just what is it?
Yes.
A BioBlitz is where we all have a good excuse to go outside and take photos and upload them into iNaturalist. And if you want to know more about that, send me an email, president@ctmn.org, and I will forward a copy of Sam Kieschnick's enthusiastic explanation in emails. It will also be in the newsletter. So if you can, and if you're a trainee, you'll get the newsletter about the 1st of September. The BioBlitz starts on September 5th.
I'm also willing to talk ad nauseum about it tomorrow night if you like.
Oh, okay. Brent, tell us who you are.
Oh, hi, I'm Brent. I work with the education community, committee, past president and INAT Nut. So more than happy to tell anything and everything I can about iNaturalist tomorrow night.
Thank you, Brent. Whoever asked that question, just remember, you asked the question. Right. Because Brent
asked me a question.
Brent told you the truth. He is an avid enthusiast, and he's what makes it work. More people like Brent will make iNaturalist work even better. Well, next month, we're planning to have our chapter meeting in person. The board meets tomorrow. We're going to continue to discuss that. The plan was made about a month and a half ago. And as you all, I hope you all are aware of, the phrase Delta variant had not been on our radar here in Texas about a month and a half ago. So the board will have some discussion and decision about whether we'll have in person. We're going to make every attempt to go hybrid for that meeting, which is the third Monday. And if Mary Beth is still here, I'm going to put her on the spot and ask her who next month's speaker is.
Yes, our chapter meeting and everyone in the training class is invited. Friends are invited if you want to invite someone. Our chapter meeting is on September 20th. That's a Monday at 7 p.m. The program is titled Bison and Prescribed Burning. It's not burning of the bison, it just dawned on me. It's Burning of the Prairie by Daniel Price. Daniel Price is a natural resource manager at the Fort Worth Nature Center and Refuge. Prescribed burning. That's bad.
Thank you, Mary Beth. I know Daniel's enthusiastic about the work he does, and I'm almost to where I might want to attend, but also have my car running so that I can drive away at 90 miles an hour during a prescribed burn.
And there is a bison herd at the Fort Worth Nature Center.
Oh, yes. Yes. You trainees are going to get to visit too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Any other announcements?
I have one announcement.
Oh,
from
please, Cheryl.
Director. If anyone has not completed their edit the profile and the MLS trainees I'm talking to, please do right away tonight, if possible. If you have any questions or anything, just let me know or let education or training. know.
Training. Yeah. And Carol is at membership@ctmn.org. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a good evening. Be seeing some of you tomorrow. And get out there and enjoy nature. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Mary Beth, for
Bye.
hosting.